Welcome to everybody. We are recording this, so as usual, just warning you it's being recorded. Mark, who's Mark? Mark Southwell, probably. We've got a couple of new names here. We've got one so far. Gavin Ford is now representing the Cowes Business Association, and we have somebody from Red Funnel, I believe, in this list. Maybe not.
Jon Stage.
Jon Stage. Hello, John. Right, I'm going to read out the names of the advisory committee that I think are here, and this is the list, the order in which I'm going to get everyone a chance to sort of to give feedback. Ben Willows, Gavin Ford, Laura P.C. Wilcox, Steve Reynolds, Giles Peckham, Michael Paler, Peter Jackson, Bob Holt, Ian Bayliss, Dan Jehan, Rob Stewart,
Laurence Mead has just joined.
Mark Southwell, Jon Stage, and Laurence Mead. We've also got a lot of people in the background today. We've got a lot of commissioners and waterfront trustees and directors. They're in the background. They're not really here to speak, but obviously they want to see what the feedback is. I'm going to get the two chairmen, which is Jeremy Dale for the Waterfront Trust and David Riley for Cowes Harbour Commission, to say a few words in a minute. And please note, I am referring to the Waterfront Trust, not Yacht Haven, because legally that's what it is. Hopefully you've all had a chance to read the documents. Just a little background. The first I knew about this, and I sort of tend to like to think I know everything that's going on, and I really hadn't got a clue about this until about a week ago, when Stuart and David asked to meet myself with Ben, who's the deputy chairman, and knows an awful lot about charities for obvious reasons, being the boss at UKSA, and also Giles, who represents yachtsmen. So we had a meeting in my garden last Friday, and they told us about it. I need to stress that a few things. This is our advisory meeting today. It's not a meeting for the commissioners. It's not actually a meeting for the Yacht Haven. It's us. It's the advisory members. We're giving feedback to Cowes Yacht Haven. Sorry, I've said that wrong already. To Harbour Commission. Too many H's and too many C's. And this is a form of going out to consult. There's a few little things. It's not one side taking over the other. It's neither side needs the other one's money. I know the word merger, it might be the right word, but it does conjure up the idea of somebody taking over the other. So at the moment, I'm trying not to use the word merger. CHC has a slightly larger turnover. I mean, it turns over a bit north of 2 million. I think the Yacht Haven is slightly less. It's all public information. The CHC employs a few more people, but it's not massively bigger. So the two businesses are, you know, for all intents and purposes, similar-ish in size. They both see this as a strategic move for the future of Cowes. Now, because the Waterfront Trust is already a charity, the new organisation is going to have to be a charity too. And this is clearly going to create an awful lot of complication. It's all doable, but it will take some time. And then the net result is the new trustees of the new charity, it's assumed, will be recruited from existing trustees of the waterfront Trust and existing harbour commissioners, but they'll all be called trustees. Staff in both organisations have been informed about this whole thing this morning, and there's no redundancies planned or envisaged at all, but it's clearly going to be, I say going to be, it's assuming this whole thing happens, there will necessarily be a change in the management structure, that's obvious. However, it's no great secret that Stuart is planning to retire sometime over the next 2 years. And since over the time he's been here, the job has expanded a lot. He's not just a harbour master, he's the chief executive of a pretty big business. So I don't think there's any great secret that the CHC has been planning to update the management structure with a chief executive and harbour master. So 2 people to do those jobs. So it's not impossible that this restructuring can also incorporate the necessary management required to take on the yacht haven. Now look, we're not here to discuss the nuts and bolts of what happens to your boat. You've got a boat in yacht haven and you're going to get kicked out and you're going to get sent around to Shepherd's Wharf and vice versa, all this sort of stuff. I mean, it's way too early to be talking about all that stuff. What we've got to do is we've got to give our feedback now this afternoon to Cowes Harbour Commission. I know I'm going to keep saying Cowes Yacht Haven in the wrong time, but we are here. We are the advisory committee of the Harbour Commission. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to ask the chairman now to speak, say a few words. I don't know whether Jeremy wants to go first or David.
I'll go first, if that's all right, Jeremy.
Okay.
Yeah, right. There's a reason for that. One thing Jon said about feedback, there's a consultation period that lasts a month from today. So you don't have to sort of think everything up today. We've got a month to deal with that and to deal with all those. Anyway, just to cover this, we've been working on this since late last summer. We consider that the potential combination of these 2 important Cowes organisations could assist our joint vision and help to develop a long-term plan for Cowes Harbour in partnership with our stakeholders, including the local community, in order to maximise the harbour's potential and its vital leisure and sailing gateway. The proposed new charity would still continue to keep safety as its absolute top priority, but would also ensure that the potential charitable status would also ensure that it could operate proactively, raising and delivering funds into public benefit projects to improve access and the enjoyment of the harbour. Assuming that after consultation we decide to go ahead, there are still a number of formal hoops to go through, including completing our due diligence and agreement of the terms of the combination and approval of the Charity Commission. Now, apart from that, this is really for you, that's all I want to say, but obviously the Waterfront Trust come at it from a slightly different angle to us, and I'll just quickly now hand over to Jeremy Dale to give an introduction from Cowes Town Waterfront Trust point of view.
Thank you, David. Yeah, I mean, from our point of view, as David's already said, that we are already a charity, so we're already in this situation. But one of the things that we've got to try and achieve, I think, in Cowes in general, is to take away all the fussiness. Let's get down to the nuts and bolts and build Cowes up to where it needs to be. I have a vision of Cowes for the future, and this forms very much part of where I believe we need to go. I'm not a yachtsman per se. I have a business in Cowes, or just up the road, but I just look at it as an opportunity that we can't let slip by. It's very, very important that we join these 2 organisations together for all the reasons David outlined, and I'm not going to go through them all again. But all our trustees are 100% behind it, and all those that we've spoken to so far seem to think it's an excellent idea. I think Cowes is actually in a very interesting place at the moment, and I won't bore you, but I'd just like to share with you, if I may, John, my views for Cowes for the future, because I think this forms very much part of what we're trying to achieve.
Oh yeah, please carry on, yeah.
First of all, we have three elements, in my view. The first element, you have to excuse my voice. Unfortunately, it goes every now and then when I'm talking, because I had an operation years ago and it still can't get used to no water. We have a sailing operation, and by that I mean we have an organisation that looks after our major regatta a year, and for too many years we've concentrated on one area. I think we've got to change, and I personally believe, and I'm just looking at it from the outside, and I'm sure I'll be shot down by some of you, that we need a professional organisation to run sailing on the water, and they should look after all the clubs and everybody in one particular element. And that should be professionally run to create regattas all through the season that are recognised worldwide. The second element, I believe, is the town itself. We've got the various organisations with Cowes Association, Business Association, which I believe every single business in Cowes ought to be a member of, and everybody in Cowes should get behind an association to grow Cowes to where it needs to be. And by that, what I mean is we want to make Cowes the place to visit, not just for people coming over in yachts. We need to make it the place to visit for the local people on the island. They don't want to think it was just yachties. They need to think it was a place to go because there's something happening. There's something exciting. There's an event going on. When the likes of the Cowes Week is on, it's fantastic, lots of yachts. But what is there really for the general public? And we've got to try and work how we can build our season from Easter right through to September and beyond, having something happening in Cowes, and that's both on the water and in Cowes. We have to create that. If we don't create that, we are missing an opportunity. The next point related to that is if we're going to have on the water activities, we need land activities. And we have a fantastic event, which is the Classic Week. So we need to have classic cars, classic motorbikes, classics, I don't know, steam engines, whatever it might be, to make it an event or centre event for the island. We mustn't just think about what's going on out there. What's going on out there is important, and that element out there is very much about Cowes Harbour Authority and about the Yacht Haven, or rather I should say the Trust. So it's very important that we don't lose sight, and we have a golden opportunity. Sadly, we had this horrible thing called COVID, but I believe COVID has actually given us a fantastic platform. We're at ground zero. I'd hate to be looking back in 3 months' time saying Cowes Week or the sailing season was dreadful because things didn't happen. Not because of COVID, but because we put events on and they weren't successful. We've all lost a lot of money in the last few years. We're at ground zero now. We've got 12 months till the next season, or 9 months till Easter. And we should all be working together to build from the bottom up now. Everybody, yes, everybody in the town and the organisations. The third element of that organisation, if you like, is here with Cowes Yacht Haven. I said it, sorry, John, the Trust and indeed the Commission. If we put those two together, we can be formidable. And I don't mean that by being, we can put our place on the map for the world. We can really build Cowes up. From now, I believe that this could be a cornerstone for all of us to build for the future, so that all the other elements I've talked about all come together. I've had conversations with a lot of you around the table today, individually over the last 12 months. I believe we're all talking from the same hymn book, but something has to be the catalyst, and I believe this could well be the catalyst. I'm off my soapbox.
Thank you, Jeremy. Stuart. You've got yeah. Stuart's likely to get involved in answering questions and things. Right. Well, let's go around the table then. I'm going to start with Ben because Ben, like me, got to hear about this a week ago. He's also, when we sat down a week ago, I think a few of us realised how little we understood about charities. And how much he does understand about charities. So Ben, And over to you.
Thanks, John. And Jeremy, that was interesting to hear what you were saying, Jeremy. I think there's in terms of my initial feedback and when I heard what David and Stuart said about this last week. I mean, for me, the benefits here about getting the public and community benefit for Cowes as a destination, as a place long term, by combining these two organisations and being much stronger together by combining the sum of those two parts, I think is a fantastic proposal. And I really think that from a charity's perspective, and Jeremy, this is by no means a criticism. I think a lot of people in Cowes wouldn't necessarily know the Cowes Waterfront Trust is a charity, and I think this is a great opportunity, a really great opportunity. And the most successful charities out there are the ones that are absolutely clear about communicating their outcomes and purpose. I was quite pleased when I read the document about the charitable sort of objects there, and I think there's some real benefit over the next couple of years to really refine the messaging here and the actual drive for this charity around the outcomes, the purpose, attracting capital grants and investment for infrastructure projects, community projects that will attract, as a charity, they will attract, if it's positioned correctly and it's put together right with the right type of messaging, it will attract public and grant trust funding for the long-term benefit of the community and the public around Cowes. Those building blocks of the messaging and the outcomes just need putting together. And I think by combining the service element of these two organisations, I think Cowes can you can move your resources around and you can look at becoming more efficient and all of those things. But actually, that will all happen as combining the business. For me, the real benefits here around having a really, a charity that Cowes as a whole can get behind as a sense of community in the public. And I think that's really quite exciting for Cowes. And it's it's been a long time coming. And I think as you get over the pieces of putting the organisations together, and there'll be some detail and challenges with that, I'm sure, but actually the greater sense of public and community that we could get together as a town and get behind fundraising projects to develop infrastructure and programmes for the community, I think fantastic. I mean, I'm all behind it. I think it's a great proposition. Bit of detail to work through, I'm sure, but in the general sense, I think it's a good move, John.
So, I mean, you made the point about promoting the objectives of the charity, which is something that hadn't really occurred to me, but how important that would be locally in order to get the community on side.
Yeah, I think, as I said, John, I think, as I said before, I'm not sure how many people would understand Cowes Waterfront Trust, a charity. Again, not a criticism, but if this is going to be a success, not just in the next 12 months, but for the long-term future, 25 years and beyond, it has to be for clear public benefit. It has to be something that the community feel they're involved in, can engage in, and get something out of. And for me, if it's going to become a charity, which is the proposal on the table, that's where the lion's share of the strategic thinking needs to be put into over the next 6-12 months as this strategic plan gets developed. Both organisations already provide some pretty decent services to people who are coming and staying in Cowes in terms of running their marinas. That, I think, can only get better by combining the two organisations. But the real strategic thinking needs to be on how can this charity evolve to become something that Cowes as a whole and other trusts, grant-making bodies, Sport England, whoever it may be, public bodies that you can apply to funding for projects can get behind, and being absolutely clear about the organisation's outcomes and what it's trying to achieve will be the critical success factors there.
So transparency is going to be really important, isn't it?
Hugely, yeah. No one wants to look at a charity and go, is it really a charity? How's it work? You've got to be absolutely crystal clear about the fact that this organisation's are going to be service driven. It's going to create its income largely by the services it sells, and that's going to go into infrastructure, community projects, public projects, etc., that achieve its charitable outcomes.
Yeah. Okay, Ben. Thank you for that.
That's right.
Gavin represents Cowes Business Association. It's your first time at one of our meetings. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, it sounds fantastic. I mean, just from my point of view, I love the points that you were just making about the business association. Everyone should be a member of the business association. It should be their first port of call. I fundamentally agree, and I think I've had conversations with a number of people on this call over the last couple of weeks since becoming the chair of the CBA, and I think there's a real desire at the moment for Cowes to work together rather than against itself. This, I think, is another thing which is going to help push that together. And if, as Ben has said, we can really involve the community and feel like this is something which everybody is involved in, it's just another way that we can all pull tighter together and come out of this kicking rather than floundering. So yeah, it sounds really, really positive. Again, without wanting to be in any way negative, it sounds great. The first thing that jumped in my head was whether the Competitions Commission would have an issue with all the marinas being owned by the same people, but that's the only thing that came to my head that might be in some way challenging.
Yes, Stuart can answer this one.
Gavin, your sort of point on sort of competition, I think, is a very good point, and it's a point that the commissioners and the trustees, have thought long and hard about. Competition is healthy. We're not trying to get rid of competition. Competition will still be in place in Cowes, but I think the real driver for this project is ensuring that we continue to give the customers of Cowes the service that they are looking for, so that Cowes remains the destination of choice. And actually, competition locally is going to be healthy. That will still remain. I see Jess and Mike Townsend is on this call. I've spoken to Michael Prideaux, Chief Exec of Boat Folk. They are still going to be there, but I think it's supportive. It's about our competition is not within Cowes. I think Cowes' competition. We need to be saying, well, there's other people, there's other ports, there's other solar ports that want a slice of Cowes' action. So it's how we work together to ensure that Cowes remains, giving the service and maintaining our position as choice destination.
I mean, Gavin, I remember from my time with this CDA on the committee, one of the things we were always fighting was to try and get companies other than high street traders to be a member of the CDA, because it tends to just look like a high street traders association, when really for 25 quid, everybody up at Somerton and where Jeremy's business is, everybody all over Cowes should be a member of it. And in fact, perhaps this would be a bit of a reset, sufficient to get people to get interested in joining, but that's more your problem than ours.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, John. I mean, just to give a bit of an update, we had our AGM about a month ago now, and we did an update. We've actually increased our membership over the last 12 months by nearly 140%, and the high street stores actually only represent 17% of our businesses.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's great.
Drive, and it's really, really good news. But there are still a load of businesses out there that we I'm going to say expect, they should want to join, because there are genuine benefits there. It's a long old road, but we're getting there.
But there's going to be, I mean, assuming this joining up goes ahead, I think the CBA needs to be very, very active with the new charity, for
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, Laura.
Hello. I've just realised I look like something out of The King and I. Sorry about that. Anyway, as you know, I became mayor in 2019, and it was pretty obvious by August that there were issues with things going on, which is why I contacted a number of you. And rather than being a talking shop, it looks like you two have been an actual action man shop, so that's really good. I think, talking as a Cowes person, I think the public are going to question the power hold that you will have by the two empires joining. I think you're going to have to be very careful about the public accessibility of sites. I think that's going to be a very, you're going to have to be very sort of accommodating in that. I think you're going to have to be very transparent over finances and financing, because that's an issue with other areas in the town, without trying to say too much. And I think you need to be, transparent over your actions, what you're doing and stuff like that. I think if you can overcome those 1, 2, 3, 4 issues, I think you'd have a good backing from the local people.
Thank you, Laura. Stuart?
So maybe again some good points and some good questions there, Laura. With regard, if I take the access point first, I think one of the joint visions and objectives of both the Waterfront Trust and the Harbour Commission will be to increase the public access to the waterfront. Cowes has traditionally had, the way it's been built has had its back to the water, potentially its best asset. We've all, I know, been around in Cowes a long time, and there's been a lot of talk about trying to improve the access in the public realm. And hopefully this new joined up, combined organisation can actually look to finally deliver improved access to the waterfront. The second point with regard to transparency, again, I think that's a very important point. And again, I think it's something that this new organisation, I think, will hopefully give further improvements, because we're here today explaining to you, answering to you, very early on in the consultation process. And the advisory committee has been a very important body to ensure that the decisions of the Harbour Commission, any decisions that are going to be fairly significant, are fully discussed and talked about before we take those decisions. And certainly with the new organisation, effectively the same advisory committee would therefore get the more opportunity to have full visibility and input into what is currently the Yacht Haven and Waterfront site. So hopefully that will improve and be beneficial. We do recognise the potential concerns about, is this organisation going to be too powerful? But one of the key points in our joint proposal is partnership. If Cowes is going to continue to build on our success, I think by and large we need to be working more in partnership. So this is not about looking to take on more power, etc. It's very much looking to work in partnership for the future of Cowes and for the future generations of Cowes. So hopefully that gives you some form of answers to your good points, Laura.
Thank you. Just need to get it across to the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Is Steve Reynolds here with us or not? He's not. I thought he was. No, fair enough. Well, he represents the Cowes Town Council, but since we've had the mayor, we've had a good representation from Cowes Town Council. Giles.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. So I did have the luxury of getting a sneak preview of this a week ago, so I've had a bit more time to think about it, but obviously no time to talk to any of the people that I represent. So with that in mind, I think the short-term benefits of efficiency and effectiveness through coordinating resources and working together are very attractive. I think the long-term vision is particularly important, how we can generate more revenue for Cowes. I think those assets work for all of us to the benefit of all the stakeholders. So the goals are naturally excellent. The big concern, I think, for yachtsmen at the moment is the marina monopoly that would be generated by this. And as discussed before, I think there are ways in which this can and should be addressed. Firstly, the charitable status is key to that. Then I think transparency, as we've discussed, stakeholder involvement in all the activities of that charity. And then finally, demonstrating measurable progress towards that long-term vision of bringing more people to Cowes, getting more revenue, building businesses and so on. So that I would say is the key area of concern and how we can address it.
Giles, I think all your points you just made very eloquently, are very valid, and will need to be answered by the joint organisation as we go forward, in communication and in consultation with the advisory committee.
Thanks, Stuart.
Okay. Thank you, Charles. Michael Paler. I've seen your name there somewhere. Yeah, hello, Michael. East Cowes Town Council.
Yes, I think that's all very positive that I've heard so far. And I can see a bright future for you. But at the moment, I've just read through it just before I came into the meeting. Oh, sorry. I've just got... So as far as I'm concerned, I can't see any problems with the joint venture.
You've got another month of official consultation period, Michael.
Yes, I did notice. So I'll put it into writing.
Thank you, Michael.
Can I just, Michael, you're obviously here for East Cowes Town Council.
Yes.
At the moment, and again, one of the challenges
Kingston Wolf.
that the commissioners and the trustees were mindful of is it
The divider.
Is it more West Cowes, Cowes as opposed to East Cowes? And to me, and I think to the commissioners, it's the main driver is making Cowes the destination of choice, keeping it clean, and then we all benefit from it.
That's right.
And I think also the charitable side, will potentially benefit, all stakeholders. So we've been talking about the slipway projects with UKSA recently, and one of the potential initial projects that if it goes ahead, effectively the new harbour charity, being a charity, would be a great vehicle to get funding in for that slipway project.
Yes.
Just as an example.
Yep.
That was my understanding of it.
Thank you, Michael. Peter Jackson, you're East Cowes, but not the council.
Correct. Representing the Medina clubs and higher up the river generally. Start where I'd leave out is I'm broadly supportive, but the execution of this development has got to be done with a huge amount of sensitivity and balance. We've already touched, Gavin initially raised this question of imbalance between the marinas. And if you look back 15 years to when Cowes Harbour Commission took over Shepherd's, there was a lot of tooth sucking around the river about the playing field not being level. But at that stage, as we all know, we had the three big marinas, East Cowes, Shepherd's, and I can say it because it was then Cowes Yacht Haven. Now we're going to have the situation where we've got the two of the biggest marinas under one roof, and East Cowes Marina is going to be the third member slightly left outside, potentially. Now, I'm sure that the new charity can be operated whilst maintaining a level playing field, and I know that East Cowes Marina has got the benefits and disadvantage which is different to the marinas further down the river, but that does need to be kept very much at the top of people's minds to maintain this level playing field for all the players. And just going back to this balance between East and West, Cowes Harbour Commission, as everybody knows, has got a remit from the Folly all the way down the river to the Solent on both the left and right banks. At the moment, if you were flying an aircraft down the river from the Folly, you'd be flying very much left wing low. Everything I've heard this afternoon is all about Cowes, and I hear loud and clear Stuart's message that the enhancement of as Cowes as a destination is going to be the benefit of everybody. But my concern is that the pressing requirements of East Cowes and there's an awful lot going on in East Cowes at the moment, particularly at the Isle of Wight Council level, and that's not going to go away. And my concern, if we take the trustees from just Cowes Harbour Commission and the Waterfront Trust, I think the danger is that we're going to lose a voice from the east side of the river.
That's a really fair point.
And yeah, I would like the select the trustees for the new charity to take to look very carefully to make sure that all the interested parties are properly represented. Now, I'm aware from first-hand experience that the Harbour Commissioners are selected through a range of the talents they bring to the table, but the talents that are brought to the table for the Harbour Commission are not necessarily all the talents that we need for the new charity, what it's going to be. So this question of the management of the new organisation should take into account the interests very firmly on both sides of the river, and not just the visitor attraction side, the commercial side relating to shops and tourist attractions, but also the shipyards, which are an essential part of the river, and they must not be forgotten.
Well, Peter, I think we all support you on that. David would like to add something about your point about the trustees.
Yeah, if this goes ahead, and I emphasise we're still a long way away from this, the selection of trustees of the new trust combining both will follow the rules for trust ports, just as it does at the moment. So it will need to select people on a, if you like, a skill base, just as it does now. And while when we select those, we always endeavour to look for people who have local involvement, the prime reason for the trustees will be, as it has been since 2001, a skill base. The reason that we have an advisory committee, such as yourselves, is to get the representatives of the various areas. Having said that, I do see what you're saying about it flying low on the left, Peter. I think that's what you said. And yes, this is West Cowes centric. However, we are completely aware that we're both sides of the river, and indeed, you know, we have spent quite a bit of time and money over the last 10 years looking at places like Kingston and East Cowes, etc. So we're not entirely just centred on the visitor side. We also do work well, I think, with the various commercial operations within Cowes.
Peter?
Yes, yeah, that's all valid. I wouldn't disagree with anything David said.
Yeah. Thanks, Peter. Bob Holtz. Bob represents taxis and commercial fishermen.
Well, nothing much to say. It's quite a lot to take in what's been said in the 4-page document, which I got an hour or so ago. Just one point I'd like to ask is there anything similar being carried out in the country anywhere else? Or are we into uncharted waters, as it were?
You know, these are charted waters, I'm pleased to tell you, Bob. There are currently 3 trust ports that are already charities. So I know you like the West Country and cruising around Cornwall. So Medivity and Lou are already trust ports. Trust ports and charities. So Lou became a charity in 1995, and then more recently on the northeast coast of the UK, a port that I hadn't actually heard of before called Warkworth became a charity, also a trust port. It became a charity in 2014, and then slightly closer to home, Chichester Harbour, whilst it is a harbour authority, a statutory harbour authority, it's actually a conservancy, Chichester Harbour's Conservancy, but they are also a charity. and again, they're quite a good analogy. So there is precedent for trust sports to become charities.
Well, that's good news. Is there's always there'll be a template then you can perhaps adopt or follow or look at.
Correct. And you know, when we were choosing our charitable objects, effectively we looked at some of the charitable objects that have been already accepted by the Charities Commission for trust sports. So we've tried to bring some of those on board, as well as making sure that our charitable, proposed charitable objects are pretty closely aligned to the Waterfront Trust. Because again, if we are going to combine the two charities, the current charity and the potential new charity, it will be important that their charitable objects are aligned.
Okay, thank you. That gives some degree of comfort that we've got something to follow and it's not setting a precedent.
Is there anything that we should be looking at in the Harbour Revision Order regarding taxi services?
Well,
I knew, yeah, because I go on and on and on about this. But Bob, have you got anything to say about that?
Not just off the top of my head, but I think we've developed over the years now. I've been doing this for quite a while since I retired from the media business. And I think we've got a good working relationship with both Cowes Harbour Commission, all the marinas, and indeed Newport.
Okay, fair enough.
I have to talk about commercial fishermen at another time.
Fair enough. Ian Bayliss.
Hello, John. Hello, everybody. Specifically on commercial vessel operators, I don't think this has a very big bearing, but I've got some kind of wider comments, and I think you probably know what's coming. In general, first of all, I think some of the things I took from the beginning of the conversation, the objectives that Ben described and having a real clear vision and it being very transparent to everybody are hugely important. I also, obviously, marine employment and marine businesses in the context of what we do as a business and how, you know, we're passionate about the marine employment here. There have been some projects previously discussed, like the site you guys have got at Kingston Wharf, and potentially relocation of some of the businesses that I'm actually at the yard at the moment. So the Medina yard here and all the small businesses around it within all elements of the sectors, commercial and also leisure yachting, etc., and all the supporting businesses. I worry about some of those projects falling away if we're concentrating on this focus. And I think that's extremely important. I mean, speaking biased about offshore renewables, you know, there is going to be a surge in UK boat building. Again, we're looking at it again. We need to protect the shipyards, you know, White Shipyard all the way down that side of the river, and again, Medina Yard and everything here. And as you know, this place is hanging out for something to happen one day because it's bursting at the seams with boats and stuff. So that's important for me. I took out the wider conversation as well. I quite like the idea that we could build these events that weren't just, we used the classics as an example, where we could get the more general public who are interested in wider things like cars, steam engines, and all the rest of it that came out the top of the conversation. I like that idea. I do think Cowes in general tends to centre on the yachting and the high street. And actually there's a whole lot more to it than that. You know, from our point of view, for example, we've got the best aluminium boats in the world that are built here in Cowes, and when opportunities arise, we'd love to showcase that sort of thing to the general public within the marinas, for example, and let them come and have a look and really see what we do as part of the whole attraction, if you like, for pulling people over for events. That's easily done. So yeah, I think on the whole, I think it's very positive. You know, I understand concerns when it comes to the kind of monopoly of that waterfront, but then again, the people that are complaining all use Amazon, right? So, and then finally, I think, and back to this coronavirus thing, it has been an opportunity for reset. We're making a new thing. There's an opportunity to really clear out, to adopt modern practices, to really cut out sort of the old-fashioned, move forward in a much more modern, streamlined, transparent way. You know, business per se has changed, I think, an awful lot over the last few years, and I think the charities as well can learn from those same things. So I think very supportive of the whole idea. Just want to make sure the wider marine employment gets thought about in all the plans that go forward from it, you know.
Totally with you on because you know my feeling on the whole employment thing here, we speak the same language there. It's not going to get dropped, I can assure you.
Brilliant.
Stuart,
that's me.
Well, Jon probably took the words out of my mouth. I know that Jon, the advisory committee, yourself, Ian, Robert, you won't allow it, and that's great. But hopefully, the track record over the last few years has seen CHC support. Cowes has to be the destination of choice for the yachting, but we're not just a yachting port. We're a proper commercial port as well, and marine employment and shipbuilding has to be a key element of that.
Well, that goes on 365 days a year, and there's not many fair weather yachties. There's lots fair weather yachties.
And one of the strong views of the Commission has always been that and we are recording it, but we don't want to become one of the sort of West Country type ports that actually closes down, has two boom months in the summer and then closes down. So you make a very good.
Yeah,
I remember Cowes in the early 80s. There was a lot of unemployment. Wasn't a great time.
I do have one final comment that popped into my head, and that is, I felt over the last few years, for example, things like Cowes Week maybe got a bit too big and a bit too much competition. Maybe having control of more of not competing against each other, that means we could go back to one sort of centralised hub for those events and actually have it super busy and full of all the crews as well as the public and all the rest of it again, because it just got all splattered and spread out and kind of and that sort of popped into my head. None of having the three big centres during Cowes Week ended up, as this sponsorship dropped off in later years and all the rest of it, sort of almost ended up not having one really good event place. I mean, I don't understand as much.
Well, I agree with you. I personally think that there were too many beer tents because Cowes is a bit smaller. So if we can agree where the beer tent is, it's going to be,
more of a hub and more centralised things and stuff.
Less competition could be good in that respect. But anyway, minor detail. Thank you. Dan.
Yes. Hello.
I know you're sitting there with Jeremy, but you are the official rep on the advisory committee. What do you want to say?
Yeah, thank you. Jeremy's just moved away. I'm going to keep it really brief, but I came into the role just 2 years ago, coming over to Cowes. I was working somewhere else and not around this particular area before. So I think this whole idea of an opportunity to work together and work closer is really important. Bringing some skills, efficiencies all together is going to help in the back end areas, but then that knocks on to the customers and people coming to visit Cowes and the profile of Cowes, that we will be able to do more together. And then finally, by having the charity, that for me would be the absolute key, is to give back more to the Isle of Wight and to Cowes. And when I say Cowes, I'm talking both sides of the river. So I personally would support it.
Thank you, Dan. Rob Stewart.
Yeah, hi. Really just to endorse everything that Ian said. It's absolutely vital for Cowes that we actually maintain marine employment, and obviously our worry is, of course, with venture keys and what's happening. I know it's outside the area that we're talking about today, but it is concerning. But as point of view of a charity, yeah, 100% behind it. It gives I hope a good fund of money to actually spend into the Cowes area. I think that's all I've really got to say.
Thank you. Thank you, Rob. Mark Southwell, what's the RNLI take on this?
Well, we're a charity and it works quite well for us. So yeah, I as a town resident, I think it's brilliant. A couple of things though. We are the port's lifeboat, not Cowes. That includes the river and the east side. Always taken that view since I started. Unfortunately, we don't get many operational staff from the east because of that bit of water in the middle. But we do get visits and education, volunteers. And I do know that the inshore lifeboat factory at East Cowes, one of the world's very few, would like to make more of its visitor centre, its heritage centre. So if this does bring a lot more ordinary people to Cowes who probably come from the middle of the country, don't even see the sea, never mind anything else, they'll probably be absolutely fascinated by what's actually in these two towns and along this river. It's a fascinating place, and Jeremy's vision, I think, is brilliant, and I couldn't agree more. Look at all that stuff that could go up at Northwood House, all that kind of classic, fit up there beautifully. Interesting, the ports you already mentioned, Stuart, that are charities. None of them are likewise active commercial ports like us. Now, I'm only aware that the RSPCA is the only charity that has enforcement powers. Would you have to consider including those to maintain safety in the harbour, speeding, drinking, all the other things we've talked about over the years? And I think that's about it. Separately, as a resident of the town for nearly 40 years, I think it's brilliant. More people can come here and do interesting things and see interesting things. It's fantastic news. Crack on.
Mark, good point. A question about the enforcement powers. All the three ports that I mentioned, I fully accept and acknowledge that the two ports, down in Cornwall are fairly quiet ports, and even Warkworth on the east coast. But they all have statutory powers, responsibilities. They are, statutory harbour authorities with the same powers and the responsibilities that Cowes Harbour has, as is a lot of you will probably be more familiar with, Chichester. And again, Chichester is still a statutory harbour authority with those enforcement powers. So going back to one of the first priorities for the new trust, it will still safety will still be our priority. The harbour authority side you'll see no difference at all on that side.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Jon Stage, Red Funnel. What are Red Funnel's angle on this one then, if anything?
Got to unmute, John. Can't hear you, John. You're not muted.
Sorry, I have two mutes. I've got kids running around, so it's a little bit mental. No, just on Mark's point there about enforcement powers, I suppose that was the main thing for us from a commercial side. I'm assuming that the harbour we probably won't see many changes to how we operate commercially. And, anything that brings more people and jobs to the island is only beneficial to us. So,
yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, but
thanks, John.
Other than that, that's it.
Laurence. Where's Laurence gone? There you are.
Yeah. Thanks, John. I only got it myself about an hour and a half ago, so I'm sort of taking it in. In principle, and I think I speak for all of the yacht clubs because there's a big conversation going on amongst the yacht clubs, obviously, with the COVID situation creating challenges for all of the yacht clubs. There is a lot of cooperation within the yacht clubs now, or more cooperation. Maybe not a lot yet, but there's more cooperation amongst the clubs, and there's more of an acceptance that we need to have events which stand up to be interesting events across the season. Cowes Classic Week is a good example of something that instead of moving towards a competitive situation with Cowes Week, has bit by bit created an environment in the market for itself with classic cars, and we're focusing on the classic part of Cowes Classic Week. I think is an excellent way to go, and I think all the clubs buy into that. I think Jeremy's points which I've got written on my piece of paper somewhere but can't find at this particular moment. I mean, I think Jeremy's points were all very good points. They look to the future. I mean, I don't have any, in the short term, in the hour and a half I've been thinking, I don't have any particular issues with the idea. I would have some issues about the competition thing. I don't know how do we deliver, how do we write a set of operating procedures that allow us to deliver on great offers for sailors if effectively 75% of the marina berths are in one set of hands. How do we ensure that we have a value for money offer, as an example? And I'm sure it can be dealt with, and I'm sure that, you know, the conversations are not that difficult, but that is something to think about. The Cowes Combined Clubs organisation certainly would support and does support. Jeremy and I have spoken about this, as have Stuart and I, or all three of us in together, certainly support the longer term goals around the sailing, building up the town over a longer period of time through the summer. And I think we have to sit down and go through some of the detail, to be frank with you.
Fair enough. Stuart, do you want to say something back to Laurence?
Laurence, obviously, I think the issue of competition and ensuring, you know, you're as an event director is very important, is very key. But as you know, we've had a number of conversations, and including, you know, with Jeremy. You know, one of the key messages from this potential initiative and ideas is very much partnership working. You know, we need to be making sure that Cowes events and Cowes Week and Cowes Classic Week, you know, really continue, you know, to survive and build again. You know, and there's no benefit for Cowes Harbour Commission or, you know, the new organisation, the combined organisation, to put up prices. And we would very much welcome to be working, you know, closer with the event organisers to give the customers, and it's, you know, all our customers, you know, the service, you know, and the racing and the eventing that they want. They're going to come back and at a price that is competitive and good value for them. So I think we would welcome those conversations.
Thank you, Stuart.
Can I just make a point on the monopoly area? We're not dealing here with a private monopoly, a private commercial monopoly. We're dealing with a body that actually is held for the benefit of its stakeholders and essentially for the local community. So it's slightly different. But the point you make, Laurence, is well made.
Okay, thank you, Laurence. So Mike Townsend, East Cowes Marina. I don't know whether it's Mike or Jess there. Either? Maybe neither. Okay, who's got the Galaxy S10?
It's Chris Ashton.
Yeah, it could be me.
Yes, but Chris, would you like to say anything? You're representing the town, the county council, and on development specifically.
Yes, thank you, John. I just actually happened to leave for another meeting immediately, but I read the document with interest and really encouraged by it. I just wanted to make a point in relation to the initiative regarding the place plan for Cowes, and I think this new organisation would immediately benefit from the production of that document, because having an evidence base about what the needs of the place are will assist then with any funding projects that the new organisation might want to take forward. So I think the timing of this is really beneficial from that perspective. On the wider marine point, you'll be aware of the Medina Valley study we've been looking to undertake, which just at the completion of that work to look at the various site options for improving marine waterfront development and employment in the valley. So I think, again, the new organisation can be a real asset to taking forward the recommendations in that document. So on all fronts, really, there's a positive slant to this proposal, and we'll obviously write in response to the consultation document on behalf of the County Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Good to get your feedback. So still nothing from Mike Townsend or Jess in East Cowes Marina. Clive Blount, you're a commissioner, but you sit on the advisory committee. So Clive, your turn.
Yeah, just a couple of quick ones, if I may. I mean, obviously, for those that don't not met me yet, I'm the new stakeholder representative on the commission. So if you want a way in from the advisory committee into the main commission, come and have a chat. A couple of points I'm thinking about, because we've been working on this paper that you just read. A couple of things that come up. Laurence, absolutely great point about competition, and I know Giles is concerned as well. And having been involved with the yacht clubs, me too, I understand what that's about. But the point is, and the way it was explained to me, is that we're not necessarily in competition between the three marinas in Cowes at the moment. Things are pretty crap out there in the industry and the market. We're actually competing with Lymington, and it's not. Oh, and we're competing with Hamble, and we're competing with Gosport. The issue with venting is that when Lymington set up and run a Cowes Week Village, which was the plan for this year, which is going to attract a lot of our business to Lymington rather than coming to us take part in Cowes. So we need to get our shit together, and I think this is a good way potentially of doing it, although I fully understand the East Cowes perspective. The other thing I would say, I think, Ian, 100% with you there. I mean, one thing we really ought to be, I mean, one of the things that Ben brought out in the meeting that we had last week was just how much is available out there in terms of charitable funding, and just what being a charity would allow us to do. And one of the things it would allow us to do, and, you know, yachties have got loads of money, they'll sort themselves out. But what we can be doing is we can be looking at supporting the smaller industries, we can be looking at supporting facilities and actually doing something to get jobs in, maybe even things like apprenticeships and sponsoring that sort of stuff. Charities would allow us to do that. And it's no mistake that we call ourselves, or we were planning on calling ourselves, the Cowes Harbour Trust, not the Cowes Town Trust, right? So it is all about right the way up to the folly. And I think becoming a charity would enable us to do an awful lot more. And I think, you know, it's pointless having a great event centre if everyone's unemployed like they were in the 1980s, as Jon said. So I think that, you know, early days, yeah, you guys have got the chance to really input to the plan, because we haven't made a plan yet. All we're doing is asking you whether you think it's a good idea or not. But the 2 points are points that we brought up. It's points that we've talked about at length. But I think the main thing to focus is it's about us against the rest of the world, rather than East against West or Shepherds against the Yacht Haven. And the charity side will enable us to do an awful lot more than we can legally do now, and does open up potential funding that we haven't got access to at the moment. But I understand everyone's concerned, and you know, I'm still listening to all sides on my side. So that's all from me, Jon. Sorry.
Thank you, Clive. Is there anybody else that is on the committee which haven't called their name?
Jess sent a message, Jon,
Right.
on the chat, and said she was on the phone to a customer,
Right.
and she's listening on behalf of Mike.
Well, Jess, do you want to come in now?
Yeah, I have just got off the phone. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
So I didn't manage to read anything before this meeting, so I'm playing a little bit of catch up here. But I think the enhancement of Cowes as a destination is great, and enabling it to bring together a central hub for events. I think that's needed. I think there will be some concerns over the imbalance, particularly on our side and between the marinas. But I imagine Mike will have more to say on that.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Jess. Just before I came to the meeting, about half an hour before, us two, I got a call from Laurie Borer, who just got. He must have got a letter from you know. Yes. And he was a little bit, you know, taken back by it. He's not basically inherently against it. However, and he represents, you know, he has a business which feels he's going to be being a bit squashed if this happens, because he's going to have, he's going to be in the middle between two Cowes Harbour Trust big marinas, and he's already feeling a little bit he feels slightly disadvantaged as it is. So he's a very good example of some of the work that's got to be done here, Stuart. For instance, he says the competition, you know, he thinks that he's got unfair competition as it is, because he says if you sail into Cowes, there's already, you've got advertising on Trinity Pontoon, which is advertising the services of and the fuel and things of Cowes Harbour Commission, which he thinks is a little bit unfair. So he's already feeling a little that it's already unbalanced. So I think there's work to be done there, and he's a really important business in this town for all the obvious reasons. But he said essentially he's not against it. So that's some feedback.
Just maybe to sort of answer that, you know, we're potentially aware of that. You know, we intend obviously to go and sit down and have a good discussion with Laurie and his team. Traditional shipbuilding and ship industry businesses like Lallows, you know, they serve the day boat community incredibly well over the years, and it's important that we take them forward and they can see the benefit. So thank you. Yeah, we will take that point on.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Well, look, I'm lost for words now. David, Stuart.
No, I'd just like to thank everybody for their input. Really, been very valuable.
Yeah. Jeremy.
Yes.
You've heard. You spoke at the beginning. You've heard everybody say their piece. Have you got anything you'd like to come back with at all?
Well, I don't think I need to, because I think it was a very, very positive meeting. I think everybody's come up with some very sensible questions and thoughts. And I think if we can get it through to everybody else in a similar manner, we'll be on the right road. I will leave you one thought, that when I joined the Yacht Haven, or rather the Trust, we talk about this place here where I'm sat as the event centre. And I've always said we've got the words in the wrong order. It should be the centre of events. I'll say no more.
Thank you for that.
Just one sort of further point. You know, today is sort of ground zero for the consultation. You know, we apologise that we probably gave you the information fairly late. However, because of the sensitivities, we wanted to make sure that we managed to brief our staff first, so that they heard it from us first. We wanted to have this initial discussion with you, initial feedback. We're sending out invites to separate organisations. Hopefully you're able to go now and discuss it with your various members and provide us feedback. We'll be encouraging, if we do have one-to-one conversations, we'll be encouraging those stakeholders to feed it back through the advisory committee wherever possible. So, any further questions that you have now or over the next month, you know where we are. Myself, David, the commissioners, the Waterfront Trust directors, feel free to ask those questions and engage. So, but just thank you.
Thanks, Stuart. Well, thank you, everybody. I think we've sort of got to the end of this meeting. Very positive. I've jotted a few things down. I'm sure everyone else has, and let's see where it goes. So let's sign off.
Just got one quick question. Sorry.
Yes, Gavin.
Is there, so obviously I'm new to this forum, we'll obviously go out to our members and sort of seek their feedback and all that sort of thing. Have you guys got a formal way that you'd like to receive feedback, or is it just jot an email, or how would you rather?
Well, it's email